Hello and welcome to the show. I am here on Forza 6 with another autocross car build. My vehicle today is the Toyota Supra. I'll be honest, I'm not a particularly massive fan of the Supra. Nothing against it, but yeah, I'm certainly not a die-hard fan of this car, but you guys wanted to see me have a go at building one, so I shall give it a try. I'm not expecting it to be the very fastest of cars. I think this is probably going to be a bit too heavy by the time that I finish with it, but we shall see. Starts off as a relatively high C-class. We're going to put all of the handling bits on the vehicle first and then see what we can do with... Wow, that is an impressive wing. We've got... Sure, you know what, yeah, we're going to stick with the Forza Aero, most definitely, for this car. I suspect there are going to be all sorts of silly bits and pieces. We might come back if we can, if we need API or something, we might come back for the likes of a weight-saving bonnet. Tyres, what are we going to get? Tyre size-wise on here, of course, race tyres. We're going to get 265s on the front, not too bad, about what we're seeing from most cars is a maximum, and 345s on the back. That's yeah, slightly bigger tyres than I was expecting. That's good. It's fractionally, you know, the big muscle cars have been getting 285s on the front, or some of them have anyway, and 345s on the rear, so maybe a smidge down on them, but still very, very good going. Okay. Massive tyres is a good sign for these builds. Let us though get some race brakes. I think it is going to be the weight that might be the biggest issue with the Supra. I mean, we have decent power to be starting with 320 horsepower, 315 torque, which is, you know, not too bad at all. However, the PI has shot up very quickly with all of this, and when we get to weight reduction after, a roll cage doesn't actually add too much weight, which is good. Normally bigger cars, not that this is a particularly big car, but normally this sort of size vehicle would add a fair more weight, so at least the roll cage doesn't add too much weight. Full weight reduction brings it down to 2,800 pounds, which, okay, for normal everyday road cars isn't much, but for these autocross builds, that's still a relatively sizable. Admittedly, some cars this sort of weight, you know, the 911 GT3 have still gone quite quickly. We will have to wait and see. With the Supra, time for some power. Now we will be able to save some weight in all of this. The exhaust is a good place to start. It's about £100 saved immediately. We're probably not going to fiddle around. I don't think we're going to have the PI to fiddle around with the likes of turbos and so on. I'll just have a look, just in case we've got no weight saving to be found, and power gain is tremendous. So yeah, not going to be fiddling around with the turbos in this car. By the looks of it, we're not going to have massive amounts of power out of this one. 400, okay, a little bit more than I was fearing we might end up being stuck with. We're looking at 410 horsepower. Okay, that's a bit better. I thought we might be stuck sort of like the 375-ish area. 410 I can certainly live with, and then we've got a couple of PI to find, so we'll put the diff on. Seeing as it is doesn't affect the PI, we will stick on a race driveline as well. Shall just have a check if we can get away with it. We can indeed, putting on the lightweight bonnet to save some weight. Hasn't changed the PI, so therefore we may as well go for that. I think that'll be my car all done and all ready to go. Yeah, 410 horsepower. It's okay. Okay power, okay torque. But you've got to bear in mind we've seen cars that have been £500-600 lighter than this with more power as well. Hopefully those big tyres will give us plenty of grip. I'm a little bit more promising, I think, from this car than I initially feared. My suspicions are it still may be just a tad too heavy for the autocrossing. Of course, to test out the Supra, I have brought it to the Hockenheim circuit, where it will have 3 runs through the autocross course in an attempt to beat the Lamborghini Miura. Our current leader has a time of 2:03.3, which is proving to be a mighty, mighty benchmark, and one that I think anything is going to struggle to get near the Supra. I doubt it will be quite up there challenging the Mira. If it does handle well, if we do have enough grip to be able to carry the speed through the gates, and if we can change direction well enough, we could see a half-decent time from this car. Certainly, with such ginormous rear tyres, we should not have too much problem with traction, and indeed, the Supra does get going very nicely out of these gates. I think second gear is probably going to be what we want for that part. Now, this is the big test through here. Oh, it does change direction very nicely, actually. I was expecting a little bit of understeer. That is not the case at all from the Supra. It is already handling a bit nicer than I was expecting the car to, which is always, always good. Question is, how much speed can we get? It's actually got good speed out there as well. How much speed can we get down this next straight? I actually left a little too late to turn in there. That was a slight mistake on my part. How are we doing? Are we going to get out to 120? It's close. It's close. It's a couple of miles an hour down on some of the really very, very fastest vehicles, but I'm not massively, not massively surprised by that. It is definitely holding its own, and it's a lot better handling than I feared we could end up with the car. Right, towards this very, very slow gate. How much speed can we get out the other side? Not bad at all, actually. From the Supra, are we going to get the tiniest bit of oversteer? There's the car wheel. That section has caught out a couple of cars. Probably not a good idea to run across the curbs with this vehicle. Brakes are good. Actually, brakes are very good at getting the Supra slowed down. And now we've got to do the same thing in towards this hairpin. Just let the car drift out slightly, but not too much. There's an RC gate around that hairpin there. Now we come up towards the final section, pushing my luck a little bit in a couple of these corners. Now the sort of slow section to finish off the run for the Supra as we wheel towards this finish line, trying to keep the speed up in the car as we are going to set a pretty good first run, 207.3 from the Toyota. I was actually expecting that to be a little bit, it felt a little bit quicker. I'm wondering perhaps where we can find some time with this car. So, on to the second run for the Supra, and I've got some work to do if I'm going to find some time. I'll be honest, that first run was not bad, and it certainly felt like it was going to be going a bit quicker than a 207. I think perhaps I'm going to have to be maybe a bit braver with the car if I want to be going any faster. Make sure we get it slowed down for that corner there is always helpful. Yeah, I was kind of expecting a little bit faster time, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to find more time. That was pushing my luck. Yeah, that is about as much as I can get away with this car through there. It's 108 miles an hour. It's not quite up there with the very, very fastest of cars, just a couple of miles an hour down on the likes of the Beetle and so on. We're again running it quite close to the barriers now, try and maintain the speed. I think this is one of these cars a little bit like the Bone Shaker in some ways. Okay, yes, this is much quicker than the Bone Shaker, but at times it feels just a little bit faster than it is actually going. It's a lovely balanced car. I very much like the way that this vehicle drives. I think it just does, in a couple of places, feel a little bit quicker than it actually is going, and I've must have just grazed that cone. Looked like it even wobbled in the rear view mirror. That's slightly irritating there, but we'll know what turning quite that soon. Again, it's good speed, 115 miles an hour down towards that braking zone is certainly good going. Again, we're getting up towards the 110. I think it's just a mile an hour slower through some of these sections than other cars, and that just little fraction adds up over the course of the lap as we now come through this final section. Traction is lovely. It's as good as the old Corvettes with their massive tyres and high power figures. It really is just as good as them with putting the power down. Now we've got it weaved through this final section. Actually much better run to 10.8, and considering there is a 5-second time penalty in that, I think I got a bit braver. I found some of the time on that run. Right, just now don't clip the barrels. So, on to the final run for the Supra. And it's looking like, if I can keep up that level of braveness really, and not make any little errors clipping of the barrels, we can get a pretty quick time out of this car. Gotta say, I am pleasantly surprised by the way that this drives. I know £2,700 doesn't sound like a huge amount, but when most of the very quick cars that have gone around here have been in the low 2000s or well below 2000, it is a fair amount of weight in the vehicle, and it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it at all. I wouldn't have, if I was not knowing any of the weight figures with these cars and trying to guess, I wouldn't think that this was, a good amount heavier than some of the other cars. It's a lovely balanced vehicle. He's working very nicely. We don't have any of the understeer either that we've seen sometimes from these cars that have huge rear tyres and slightly smaller front tyres. We don't get the huge understeer going on from this vehicle, which is equally nice. And it's another one of these cars, we've seen it with a few vehicles now, that is just lovely and easy to push hard. The Audi that went out last time was not. It was not an easy car to drive fast around here. This thing, it is just so effortless to drive this car quickly, a bit like the Honda NSX. While the NSX was nowhere near as fast as this, it was very easy to drive it quickly here, and it's going to be the same with this. There is just a very ever so slightly small hint of oversteer going on from the Supra. Just a couple of places when you really absolutely on it, the back end just ever so slightly thinks about wanting to go sideways. Aside from that though, I can't really fault the handling at all in this car. Little bit down on acceleration, perhaps. We're only talking a couple of miles an hour here, but the traction does more than make up for that, I think. In places we get a little bit of a bigger slide through there than we would perhaps have ideally liked to see. And now the run towards the finish line. I may have been having a knack of just wiggling the car out of shape coming into that last section. They've got it through there this time around. 206.5 on that particular run. I felt faster than a 206.5. Little bit of I can't quite figure out what it is with this car. I think it does feel a lot quicker than it was. I don't know where I lost time on that run. I thought that run was better than the previous one. I think that kind of perhaps sums up this vehicle in some ways. I'm slightly confused by that what felt like a very quick run from the Supra. It is a lovely easy car to drive. I wasn't expecting it to be as easy as it is. Very well balanced. The brakes are good. Straight line speed is pretty good. A little bit down, but still pretty damn impressive nonetheless. It's just something. I think it is. It's just a case of it loses just a fraction. And we're only talking tiny fractions through some of the corners and just around the course of the lap. That does all add up to make a little bit of time down on the really very fastest of cars. I don't know. It's an odd one, actually. I have to say, I was expecting that the final run to be a bit quicker than it was. It feels like a very quick car to drive around here, but that is the time for the vehicle. I am pleasantly surprised. Most definitely, it doesn't feel like one of the heavier cars to have gone around here. That is for sure, and very well balanced. To be fair, better balanced than a lot of cars that I've driven around here. But it perhaps just lacks a tiny little bit. It's just half a tenth here and half a tenth there through some of the gates. That just add up. But still, I was pleasantly surprised by the Supra. The lap time will put the car into, well, it's a very, very crowded area of the table. It goes into 16th place, just beating out the Sunbeam Tiger, a fraction behind the Mercedes 190e, the Toyota MR. There's a bit of a Toyota section going on, I've just realised, and the MR2, the Corolla. So it is all around in that area. Yeah, it's a good time after all going around this course, and there is a lot of cars in the high 205s, low to mid 206s. It's a very, very busy area of the table, and the Supra goes slap bang in the middle of all of that. Definitely one of the easiest cars I've had to drive around this course. I will definitely say that much about it. To get quick times with this car is, yeah, really not too hard. However, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.